questions to our students at the beginning of this project, and the two main ones that we focused on were what factors influence community, and then how do we get people to stay in Fort Wayne, as in live downtown, or to come at least visit and tour Fort Wayne. So students explored that question, and then in groups they determined that a lack of a sense of community is what is the actual main reason that people don't stay in Fort Wayne and they don't like to visit our city. So then in their large groups of 12 people, students worked together to identify what successful cities have done in their redevelopments in order to promote that sense of community and build a strong foundation that people want to be a part of. And then we also incorporated our Principles of Engineering and our CEA classes, and they work together with our students on two different aspects of their redesign. So the first one was that our post students created bridges, since one of the focuses was on the Three Rivers, and then our CEA students actually created a 3D rendering of a potential building or business that could be used in the redevelopment of Fort Wayne. And the way that students decided which post student and which CEA students they worked with was we held a new tech job fair, and they had to actually interview and then go through the whole hiring process, signing the contracts and all of that.
Civil engineering and architecture class, the students were asked to become hired by a world studies group. Once they got hired by a world studies group, they were able to choose locations in the city that they felt needed to be improved, and so they chose those locations, began developing and doing site discovery on that location. And site discovery is something that the students haven't done yet, so they went through that process of site discovery and what's already there and what it should be and what's around it and where's the parking and all of that great stuff. They had a purpose for their building they began creating, and the creations were just totally outrageous. They were out of this world this year, but it was all new to them. They had never thought about commercial at all, except for when they themselves were in world studies, so they kind of knew about urbanization, but then were able to apply that previous knowledge from sometimes up to 3 years ago to a totally new project where they were able to actually create the building itself.
The hiring process was a little difficult because I felt bad denying some people. So what we did to decide the right people is we looked at their class rank, and Damon and Roberto were top 10, and we figured that if we got them together, they would work well together.
When we were first introduced in the project, we didn't have any idea what we were going to do. It was kind of like a weird mix between the current project and what the freshmen were doing, but with this job fair, it actually turned out pretty good. We got to represent our skills as an architect. A nice experience about how actual job fairs are.
You never get to know how nerve-wracking an actual job fair is, but walking around out there, you have different emotions. Do I take the more money or do I take the people that's with it? And I feel like we had to weigh all of those options in together and make the best choice possible.
And it's very nerve-wracking because you don't really know how some of the freshmen and students work in class, so you gotta put trust into how they work and see if you can depend on them and things like that.
And I feel like not only are you trusting them, but you're getting to know the underclassmen and the new generation of your school and trying to help build their character and everything and get them ready for their senior year and their junior year and their years ahead and really shape the school after you're gone.
With this job fair, it actually felt like we're preparing ourselves for an actual job fair in the future, and it created a nice work environment so that we can look forward to it in the future.
The question is, how are community, culture, and urban development interconnected? Which is a question that takes a lot of thoughtful consideration to answer. We asked our students to consider these themes of culture, community, and urban development through a series of reading both fiction and nonfiction pieces, as well as research and real-world exploration. And then they are in charge of finding the connection between those themes and making meaning of what those themes mean. And then they take their understanding and they apply it to their redesign and redevelopment of Fort Wayne. And they have to use that evidence based on their critical thinking and their research to explain their rationale for the design choices that they chose and that they made during the process of redesigning Fort Wayne, which is what we believe makes this project very rigorous.
David Flesh, and I'm the principal, one of the principal of engineering teachers here at New Tech Academy. And for one of our first project line bridges for a contest for IPFW. So we did that, and when we did that, we learned how to use a bridge making program called West Point Bridge. And in that, students have to make bridges, and they have to reduce the cost of the bridges, and the bridges still have to be functional. From that project, my students then offered the freshman students the ability to make bridges for their downtown revitalization project for the riverfront Fort Wayne and the downtown area. And so my students then made resumes and then showed examples of bridge products to freshman teams, and then were hired by freshman teams. And then the freshman teams gave the design parameters for making their bridges to my students, and then my students used West Point Bridge program to make their bridges and then cost them out for them.
We decided that one of the most important parts of city planning and development is being able to identify the deficiencies in our own community. So we worked together with the mayor's office, a local architecture firm, and several other community members involved with the actual redevelopment of Fort Wayne to create a 4-hour-long field trip to the heart of our city. So we took our students downtown, and they were able to get a bird's eye view and then several other experiences of downtown Fort Wayne, where they were able to kind of reflect about and talk about what our community of Fort Wayne is lacking. And then another way that we wanted them to actively explore their learning was to be able to compare to comparable cities that are also going through redevelopments. So we had our honors students research several various different comparable cities and the different elements that they're doing to kind of recreate their communities and promote that sense of community. And then our honor students presented out in class, and our students used that tool as another way to gather research and create a rationale for the decisions that they made in terms of what to put on their blueprint and where to put it and why they were making those choices.
Authenticity is a vital aspect of the Don't Move Improve project. The evolution of the project over the past 4 years has been something significant due to the community partnerships that we've made over the past 4 years. 4 years ago, we had about 20 community members, including the mayor's office, decide that they wanted to back the project that we created where we redeveloped Fort Wayne. In the past 3 years, our latest for this project itself, the Gallery Walk, saw 140 participants from the community, anywhere from the mayor's office to the Downtown Improvement District to Greater Fort Wayne Incorporated to the Visit Fort Wayne Center. And each one of those groups offered workshops to give the kids more understanding about the redevelopment that's happening in Fort Wayne right now. To start the entire project this year compared to the past, we actually met a few weeks before the project rolled out and asked if there was anything that they would like to see within the project. And their ideas were maybe instead of groups of 4 that we actually increase the groups of 12 so that feels more like city planning. So this project itself has allowed our stakeholders in the community to take ownership of the project in which we created 4 years ago, and now have obviously created something that simulates real world problems and that gives the students an opportunity to actually solve these real world problems and then present it back to the public in the sectors in which that actually make some of these things happen. We've had the opportunity to be on every form of media in the Fort Wayne area due to this project, whether it was print media with the newspapers or digital media within the news, television crews, And then we also, social media kind of allowed us to promote this project freely within our public. The last aspect is we've had the honors group, actually, they're going to be sharing out to the city council to see if they would actually go forward with a few of the ideas that they saw in the blueprint. So authenticity is probably one of the aspects of the 6A's rubric that we are very, very proud of, because we reached out to everywhere and anybody that would want to play a part in the project. We allowed students to go out and find community members that could provide vital information for them to use during their project. And hopefully in the end that some of the real world problems will be solved by the students and their outlook on what Fort Wayne should be. Students were given the opportunity through the Deputy Mayor Carl Vandemer and the Envision Center downtown that actually shows the redevelopment process in Fort Wayne, and Design Collaborative. The members of Design Collaborative allowed our students, our freshmen, all 90 or so of the students, to actually go through their facility and see some of the projects that they're officially working on and designing for the downtown area, and ask any questions or see some of the visuals of what they're working on. We also were able to go up to the top of the PNC building where the students could actually look out on the whole entire city and surrounding area, and actually start kind of drawing out where they thought things should go or what they saw as a problem or an eyesore. We also went to the top of the AEP building, which is 26 stories. Students could see all the way out to Wayne, which was really interesting for them, because when we did a poll to start the project, only 30% of the students said that they had ever been to the downtown district. And I asked, what do you mean by that? And they said, we've never actually stopped and walked around. We've always driven through. So it was really important for them to be able to go up to the top of that building and look out and see everything, and see what could be changed or what should stay exactly the same. And then the last place was Envision Center, where the students actually heard about the guided principles, including sustainability, connectivity, community, public safety, and they were able to see how Fort Wayne is kind of moving forward in those 6 areas to try to make the downtown district better. And then when we got back from the field trip, the students were able to discuss what they saw with the group members and saw with the rest of the class about things that they thought needed to be improved or could stay the way that they are. For assessment practices, students had to demonstrate their understanding and knowledge through various aspects. One was through an IACT that was focused on comparable cities and how community aspects were found both in their reading of the lottery and eventually in the literacy task that determined whether they understood how some other cities around the country compared in their reasoning for redevelopment and those elements that were in the redevelopment. Students also had journals that were based on numeracy. They were based on understanding of statistics through tourism and the city's growth due to redevelopment. Students went through various forms of peer editing, teacher editing, and rough drafts during their IACT and during their blueprint. They were actually given a rough draft blueprint of a 24-inch by 36-inch blueprint, and the students actually cut it up into 3 sections and separated between the 12 members of their group. And they were to develop that portion of the rubric, or that part of the blueprint first, and then they actually went and did a final copy later on with a key and so forth. In the beginning, the students were provided a clear explanation of how they were going to be assessed through the CRA rubric. We used language and convention for the written comm during the IACT. We used the evidence section of the English language arts research rubric for their IACT, and also the argument section with the thesis in their IACT. For history, knowledge, and thinking, their written rationale or literacy task at the end of the project, they're evaluated on whether it was relevant or if they investigated other resources such as other cities. We looked at history content during a jigsaw activity that each of the students individually participated in. The honor students looked at domestic cities, and they actually shared out through a gallery walk where students could walk around and evaluate and see what other cities had. It was kind of a teach back moment. And then the general public of the classroom actually looked at foreign cities, and they did the same thing. So they were able to allow people to give feedback on different forms of what cities were doing for redevelopment purposes. Obviously, at the end of the project, it culminated in a gallery walk exhibition where they received feedback from 140 different community members in the public. That information was then tallied by Cheyenne and I to where the students could actually, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being that they understood aspects of community, functionality of the city, overall design, riverfront development, entertainment and culture, and they actually received a 1 for low and a 5 for high. And what we did is we took the average score from each of those public members, and then they were given back to the students to assess how they did in the project. We did agency, where it was focused on impact and self and community, where they looked at how they influenced their group or influenced the community members that actually came in. And then obviously in the beginning we always start our projects with a pre-test to gain my understanding of what their prior knowledge is of the subject area. In this case it was urbanization and urban sprawl and the impact it had on society. And then at the end they took a post-test to see if they had grown, and if they didn't grow, we actually went back and Cheyenne and I retaught some of the areas in which it showed a large percentage of students that didn't understand it through the post-test. And then lastly, we used Critical Friends over the past 3 years to kind of make this project bigger and better than it's ever been. And through our personal reflection and from student reflection through the Critical Friends process, those wonders have made this project to the point where we feel like students are not only being assessed by the facilitators, but they're also being assessed by community members, and they're also being assessed by their peers. But the most important piece is they're actually becoming a part of that criteria. They're creating the criteria for the next group that comes in, so that this project just can continue to grow.
It's fun. Like at the beginning of this project, I didn't know like a lot about downtown. Like I thought I did, but I really didn't.
Overall, I think the project was really nice. I liked being able to just put what I wanted wherever I wanted.
It felt like I made the city, and that's basically what the project was, to build your own city in your eyes and a kid's eyes.